Hey everyone. Today is World Suicide Awareness Day, and I just wanted to say a few words on that and share my story. Uh, as some of you may or may not know, I'm medicated currently for depression issues and anxiety issues. It's been on and off for a few years, but I'm doing quite well at the moment. Um, Certainly not always being this way though. Back in my early 20s, I was miserable, even after coming out, which I hoped would solve the issues that I wasn't speaking about and wasn't getting help for. Um, I got good at playing it off at that time. I was always out socializing, drinking, um, partying, sleeping around, just having a good time. But I wasn't. I hated waking up every day. I was working a job that I despised. Um, as a result, I was living at home, but I was always running late for work, so mum was having to drop me in. Usually ended up being late for work herself because of that. Um, and all this excessive behaviour, the staying out, the disappearing for weekends at a time, and no one ever really knew where I was. It was causing a lot of tension between me and my family. I was fighting with them a lot, especially my mum, who I was always very, very close to growing up, and it caused a rift. um, this went on for a couple of years. I was every time anyone asked me if I was okay, I'm fine. I was always laughing and happy, so no one really had any reason to believe otherwise unless you're particularly close to me and you could see the signs that something wasn't right. And I remember one night everything got really bad. Uh, it was snowing, and I was looking out over the harbour in Gosport where I live, and I'd had a few drinks and a couple of smokes, and I just needed to relax, is what I was telling myself. I guess misinformed calling it self-medication. I was, if I'd had enough, then I wouldn't have to think. That was always my bag when it came to dealing with my issues. And things got really, really dark when I was looking out over the water. But I managed to snap myself out of it long enough to walk home. So I did. It was all a bit of a blur. I got in, um, sat on the sofa, had another couple of smokes, couple of drinks, and I just remember thinking, can't do this anymore. All the thoughts that I had crushed down had just sprung back up faster, harder, darker. And I'll spare the details, but I knew how I was going to do it. Um, and I wanted to. I didn't want to wake up again. It was too much. But as I was about to do something, I just heard snoring from the other room, and it was my partner at the time. And I remember thinking to myself, this is my lifeline. I can't do this to him, can't do this to my family, and honestly, I don't want to die. Um, so I went into the bedroom, I woke him up, and I just started crying. And I'll never forget the look on his face. He said, "Joe, what's up? What's going on? You're scaring me." And I couldn't find my words. I couldn't say that I was suicidal and wanted to end it all. So I remember writing it down on a piece of paper. I kept a notepad in my drawer, just for when things got too much and needed to get things out of my head and onto paper, and yeah, I just wrote down what I was feeling and handed it to him, and I just couldn't stop crying. And it's still really tough to think about now. It's not something I think about a lot, but he held me for quite some time, a couple of hours probably, until I'd settled down enough to go to sleep. And I woke up the next morning and I promised that I would talk to somebody. I'd start seeking help and learn how to deal with things. So, bless him, he was there when I called for doctors because I didn't want to be alone, and then my mum took me there. And again, I was terrified. I was ashamed because there's this whole stigma of you can't think like that. You shouldn't think like that. You've got friends. You've got a roof over your head. What is there to be sorry for? And it just doesn't work like that. When you've got this thing in your head that's just dragging you down constantly, nothing makes sense. Nothing's logical. But I took that first step, and it was a baby step. And I went to the doctors, and they asked me what kind of thoughts I'd been having and how long I'd been having them, and bless them, there was no judgment whatsoever. They were there to help. And I was put on medication, then I started sort of working things out in my own head, and it felt like a massive, massive weight had been lifted just by saying that I needed help. Just by writing on that little piece of paper that things were too much and I couldn't take it anymore, and showing it to someone. And I think the point that I'm getting at here is, there's always somebody to help, and there's always time to step off of that ledge before it gets too far. And it's taken a long time to start feeling self-worth, to start having self-belief, to start feeling confident in the way that I do today. And I've put in the work and things have been going well. I quit that job that I hated, so now I'm working part-time down at the co-op. I'm at Brighton University at BIM, studying what I love, songwriting and music production. Next week, I've actually got something really special to share with you all, with the band, so keep an eye out for that. But my point is there's always somebody who will listen, whether it's a co-worker, whether it's a family member, a trusted friend. If you can't say it out loud, you can write it down like I did. If you can't hand them in person, just leave it somewhere for someone to find. Or if any of what I've described, the life of the party who goes missing for days because they're partying and having fun, or the person who's usually around and goes quiet, if you know someone like that, just pull them to one side, take them for a coffee, a walk, anything, and ask them, are they okay? Because most of the time we can't bring ourselves to say it if we need help. And if it's you, just keep going, do something, anything about it, please. Not for necessarily me, not for your family members, but for yourself. And who knows, if you can find the strength to pull yourself out of it, maybe you can help somebody else. But most importantly, I think that we all need to try and do our part, as a lot of us already do, to just end the stigma and to make talking about it easier. I'm going to drop some links below in the comments, or you can go on our link tree, and there'll be help services, whether it's Mind or any of the other mental health teams and Samaritans out there that are willing to talk at a moment's notice and will be there for you if nobody else can. It can be a bit shit out there at times, we all know it, but hang in there, it's worth it. I promise.